Hey, Jamie here, and welcome to Module 4, Personal Performance, Part 3, Maximizing Personal Performance, where we're going to be talking about how do you go about taking what we learned about the mindset conditioning packet in Part 1, as well as the physical energy in Part 2. How do we turn that into a daily routine? How can we make sure that most of the days that we're trying to focus, if that's Monday through Friday, or maybe it's 6 days a week, that on days that we're focused, days we need to be productive, we're consistently able to hit between 90 to 100% energy levels. And that's subjective. It's based on how you feel, which we'll talk about, but that's the goal. Can we get to 90 to 100% routinely? So in this part 3, we're going to focus on creating both a morning and an evening routine to help you maximize daily energy and performance. I'm going to show you how to track, analyze, and manage your personal performance using a personal performance tracker, and then also understanding the best approach for planning your week. So I'll talk about bucketing, outcomes, prioritization, and chunking, and then also understand how you're going to be conditioning these personal performance habits so that it becomes effortless, so that it's you are successful thoughtlessly. And we'll talk about how to do that. So this goes in line with parts 1 and 2, but we are genetic machines, and we really have two systems. We have our physical body, and then we have our mind, and we have to make sure that both of them are very energized, but then 2, we need to maintain them, and we need to know when to turn them on and then when to turn them off. And that's why we want to have routines. So in order to turn both our body and our mind on, we want to have an AM routine that is like clockwork. We wake up and boom, we do this, we turn on our body, we turn on our mind, and then we start the day. So the very first thing that is best to do is get your body moving. So when you wake up, put on your shoes and either go for a walk. Maybe you have the coffee on pre-drip. So when you wake up, coffee's ready to go. All you have to do is put it in a coffee mug and you go for a walk. If it's an off day, if you're following a workout program. If you are following a workout program, let's say it's a lifting program and you're lifting, say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or you're doing CrossFit or a high-intensity interval training circuit. So if you're doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday or something, then on the off days, at least be walking. Still do something to move your body. And the reason you want to do some sort of physical activity, even if it's just walking, is because that's going to get your blood moving. It's going to oxygenate your cells. It's going to wake up your whole body, and it's going to help promote the hormone release. So even after a short, brisk walk, whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, etc., when you come back, plus you will have already had the caffeine in you, and then as your blood's moving faster, that's actually going to take effect faster. That's going to make you feel a lot more awake. I recommend if you're going to go for a walk, plug in an audiobook. Listen to something inspiring. Listen to something motivating, something that's going to get you in the right headspace. And then when you come back, I recommend doing meditation, even if it's 5 minutes. Now, I don't do this religiously in terms of it's not a spiritual thing for me. The reason I meditate, even if it's just 5 minutes, is it jolts your mind awake because it's very hard to focus. So I want to quickly walk you through when I meditate, what does that look like? How could you go about doing something similar or something different? The way that I do it is I usually sit in my office chair, and I sit at the edge of the chair, and I keep my back straight. I keep my arms and my hands kind of folded in my lap, and I close my eyes, and I just set my alarm on my phone for 5 minutes, and I breathe in deeply. I go, and when you breathe in, you can feel cold air underneath your nostrils. So when you breathe in, it's kind of like you feel cold air at your nostrils. And then when you breathe out, you can feel warm air. That's all I'm focusing on. And for 5 minutes straight, all I'm doing is I'm breathing in, holding for 4 to 8 seconds, and then breathing out over 4 to 8 seconds. So something like this. Breathe in, hold for 4 to 8 seconds, breathe out. And that's it. You do that for 5 minutes straight, and you're going to see how hard it is to only focus on the cold air coming in through your nostril and the warm air coming out of your nostril. You're going to think about everything else in the world. You're going to think about your work. You're going to think about family or friends or someone, an intimate relationship, or you're going to think about something that you should have done that you haven't done. The whole point is when you're meditating, what you're doing is you're using all of your focus possible on your breath. And then when something else pops up in your mind, you're acknowledging it. You're saying, okay. And then you push it out of your mind again and you go back to your breath. It's very difficult. And the reason it's so good to do even 5 minutes in the morning is because it requires so much focus. It is a massive jolt to your brain. It wakes you up mentally. So then after you do 5 minutes of meditation, then you want to go through your mindset conditioning packet that we talked about in part 1. So reading through your beliefs, reading through your values, reading through who I'm becoming, looking at your life dream, where you're going with your career, looking at your 3-year vision, looking at your 12-month commitments, and then priming those confirmation beliefs at the end. So after you go through your mindset conditioning packet, then you're going to want to review your daily schedule and outcomes. So what are you going to be doing that day? Take 5 to 10 minutes to review your daily schedule, and then begin the workday with focused and determined action. Aggressively execute and start working on and focusing on the most important thing for the day. When you think about your body's energy and your mental energy, you're going to have the most focus and energy in the mornings. So that's when you want to allocate the most important, your best performance level to the most important task. And usually the hardest tasks or the most important tasks are the ones that are the most creative or require the most thinking. And so you want to try to set up all of your thinking time and the most creative work you have, put that stuff in the morning. That's when you're 95 to 100% energy levels. And also, have you ever noticed sometimes where you let's say it's a diet or a program for studying, let's say you're doing the CFA or CPA or something like that. It's something that's long-term and requires discipline, daily focus on something. Well, a lot of people break their diets or don't do their personal development or don't do their reading or studying when they know they should to in the evenings. And the reason they break in the evenings is because there's 2 reasons. One, they're drained energy-wise, and they don't have that excess reserve energy in order to push through and do what they want, or what they know that they should do. But then 2 is decision fatigue, because they've made so many different decisions during the day and they've focused on so many things that they're mentally exhausted. And then that's when discipline breaks down. So that's why if something's very, very important, always try to do it first thing in the morning. So we turn our systems off in the evening, and that's so that you can get a good night's sleep and get quality deep sleep and REM with 7-8 hours. So usually what I recommend in the evenings is plan out your next day that evening. So what I always tell myself and everyone I work with is plan tomorrow today. Plan tomorrow today. Plan tomorrow today. Because you don't want to interrupt your flow in the morning. It's better to just, when you're already tired at the end of the day, before you kind of clock out or sign off mentally, you're just taking 5 to 10 minutes thinking through, okay, what do I need to do tomorrow? What are my priorities tomorrow? And which one must I start doing first? So just set the next day the evening before. Then you want to relax. Do something that's not going to be super stimulating mentally for a half an hour to an hour before bed, ideally. And then that way that'll allow yourself to calm down and transition into a melatonin state where your body's releasing melatonin and you're getting sleepy. Dim the lights, use night mode on electronics or TVs, etc. And then right before you're about to get into bed, I recommend take 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes and go back through your mindset conditioning packet. Look at the dreams again. Look at where you're taking your life, where you're taking your career. Look at your 3-year vision. Look at the 12-month commitments and the benefits that you'll have, the incredible outcomes that you'll have in your life when you do achieve these goals and these commitments. So the reason you do that is your mind, even when you're sleeping, your subconscious is still working. And have you ever had it where you saw something during the day or you were thinking about something during the night, and then you actually dreamed about it, or you woke up the next morning, you had an answer, that's because your subconscious mind is still thinking and still processing. So when you review this stuff right before going to bed, it's just further cementing and further conditioning it into your mind that this is where I'm taking my life. This is where my career is headed. This is what I will have, no matter what. And then, of course, try to get a minimum of 7-8 hours of sleep, which means that you're going to need to be in bed for, I would call that 7.5 to 9 hours, 8 to 9 hours. So what I want to show you first is what does an AM or how do you go about tracking progress. So here is what I call the personal performance tracker, and this is what you're going to use when you decide to start day one of your personal performance, which we'll talk about at the end. But I want to walk you through how to use this. It's pretty simple, and what are all the different tabs. So this very first tab, Annual Dashboard, is just a giant overview of all of the progress and all the data that you track for the year. So you can see that it's sleep average hours for months. So you'll see all the examples I have in for all 12 months. They're the same. So you can see right now, if I were to go to January, I only have one entry, 7.5 hours of sleep, a workout, mindset conditioning in the morning. What time did I start the workday? How many hours of personal development? Outreach messages, which is how many people have you reached out to, either via LinkedIn or via email for networking, and we'll talk about this later in the program. And then conversations, how many people have you actually talked to in regards to networking? Again, we'll talk about these two later in the program. And then workday end time. So when do you actually sign off your brain? When are you getting ready for bed? And then workday hours. So this is just the difference between when you started the workday and when you ended the workday. And then performance. So this is where it's 0 to 100%. And a lot of people previously, when they started using this, they were judging themselves and their performance based on how much they got done during the day. That's not what this is for. This performance number is energy. And you can see the note I've included here. Your energy level, how did you feel from 0 to 100% today? How did you feel energy-wise? So don't think of this as, work done or whether you got through your entire checklist or anything like that. This is physically, in my physiology, how energized did I feel today? Did I slump in the middle of the day? Was I emotionally exhausted? Was I just burned out? Did I have a horrible night's sleep? All that you're going to want to, that's what the performance is for. And then PM mindset, did I briefly review, even if 5 minutes, did I go back through my mindset conditioning packet at the end of the night? And this is also for kind of PM routine. Did I do my PM routine? And then notes. So any notes that you have regarding the day in terms of your performance and how you felt, that's where you want to put that here. So if you had a really bad night's sleep, put that in. If you're extremely stressed about something, put that in the notes. If you're taking a new medication or something, put that in the notes. If something emotional happened in your life, put that in the notes. Because as you start to aggregate this data over a time period, once you have a full month's period, you'll be able to look at this data and start to make better decisions about what's working well for you and what's not. So you'll start to see another idea for a note would be, did you eat right before dinner? When did you have dinner? You'll find that if you ate dinner right before bedtime, you're probably going to be tired the next day, and it's because you didn't get as much deep sleep. So those are the inputs for this personal performance tracking sheet. And you can see all these months right now are using the same example for that first entry line. So these 12 months are all being aggregated into this second tab, the summary tab. So you can see it's the same input. So sleep, workout, and mindset, etc. All the way across. And then this summary sheet is spitting out the bars here on this chart. So you can see average hours of sleep for every month, the average performance level that you had for each month, how many workouts total did you have for each month, How many total mindset conditioning sessions in the mornings did you do? How many PM mindset conditionings did you do in the evenings? And then the average personal development hours, total hours for personal development across each month, and then average workday hours for each month, total outreach messages sent. And again, we'll talk about reaching out to people in the networking section of this program, as well as conversations. We'll talk about that then as well. So now there's this third tab, next 30 days. And this, some people use it, some people don't. I personally enjoy using this, and I found it very helpful for myself because I use both a physical planner, a physical journal for my day planning and my week planning. But then sometimes I also put in what are the most important priorities to be accomplished within the next 30 days. So I'll just put in priorities for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, etc. And what I'll do is I'll plan out my next most important 30-day objectives. I put those in here, and then I also plan out 60-day objectives and 90-day objectives. So think of this as 1 month, 2 month, 3 month. And then I have a start date. So I just put in there January 1st, 21 for now. But so this is a productivity page for you. You can use it or not, but I have found it very, very helpful. And also, this should not be just a checklist of everything that needs to be done. It's only the most important priorities, the most important outcomes. So it's not a to-do list. Okay. So the only other thing that I want to talk about is if I move right here, you can see there's this part where it says goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then there are X's. So the X's, so think of goal 1 as your 12-month commitment number 1. 12-month commitment number 2, commitment number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And all the X is telling you is whether or not did I make progress on this commitment today. And the reason this is going to be helpful is at the end of the month, you're going to be able to look back and say, wow, I made almost no progress at all on commitment number 2. Or I made almost no progress at all on commitment number 6. So by tracking which days did you make progress on commitments, you're going to keep a better track of how much focus have you been allocating to these 9 different commitments that you have over 12 months. So this is the personal performance tracker. And then you're going to have the weekly and daily planning. So this I just brought out now so that you can see this, but we'll be revisiting this. The second part, so if I go back to the PowerPoint, you're going to see that we're going to be talking about these parts. So how do you go about planning your week? You want to plan it on Sunday, and then there's 5 steps to doing so, and then ideally planning the day. So with that, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so now let's talk about planning your performance for both your week as well as your day. So there's 5 steps. And the very first thing you want to do is focus on what are my life buckets. And so you have 3 primary buckets, and that's your personal life, your personal performance, and your professional life. So within your personal life, you have relationships, spiritual, as well as, anything else currently going on in your personal life. You have your performance, which we already talked about, the 4 pillars. You have mindset, sleep, nutrition, and fitness. And then professional is your career, financials, professional networking, as well as personal development in order to improve your skills and your knowledge and experiences. So these are your buckets, and then your 12-month commitments are usually spread across these 3 buckets. So when you're planning your week, you're going to want to think about, all right, these are my 3 buckets. What outcomes will I achieve for these 3 buckets over the next 7 days? So this is where you're just brainstorming, what must I achieve? What needs to be done in the next 7 days? And then once you bullet point out outcomes, then you need to prioritize those outcomes based on your values, your standards, as well as your 12-month commitments. So this is you saying, all right, if I have 10 things that I know I must complete by the end of this next 7 days, in which order must I achieve these? In which order of importance are these different outcomes? Because you need to have a hierarchy of importance, because let's say something blows up in the middle of the week or something ends up happening and you're not going to be able to complete all 10 things or whatever the number is, you need to know in what order of importance must I still work through these outcomes. So once you've prioritized your outcomes, then you want to figure out when can I chunk activities. And what I mean by chunking is, so on average, it takes between 25 to 30 minutes for your mind to refocus and enter back into deep work, or what some people call flow. So by chunking, that's going to allow you to do, call it, an hour to 3 hours of total focus on one task. And so by chunking tasks into large blocks of time, it's going to significantly reduce that transition cost mentally, and it's going to improve your efficiency. You're going to get a lot done faster because you're not constantly trying to refocus and transition to the next activity. So similar activities put in large time frames throughout your week. And then the last thing you want to do is then, once you've thought through the activities that you need to do to achieve these outcomes, you've chunked those activities into blocks of time, you then need to figure out, when am I actually going to do these activities during the week? So what that might look like is a success schedule. And so what a success schedule is just think of it as default operating. You know what you're doing with your time. So for Monday, for Tuesday, for Wednesday, for Thursday, for Friday, etc., you know where your time is going. And for the most part, you know when you're going to be doing different activities. You know when you're going to be working. You know when you're going to be eating. You know when you're going to be studying or reading or any other type of personal development. You know when you're going to be doing your networking. So you're laying out a week and you're consistently following this schedule. And the reason a schedule is so important is budgeting your time will allow you to do everything that you want. You can build your own work-life balance. And the reason most people struggle with work-life balance or struggle with long-term projects is because they don't use their time well. When people don't know what they're supposed to be doing during a specific time, a dinner that should take maybe 45 minutes to an hour on your own during an evening can run into 2 hours or 3 hours, or one TV episode or two TV episodes turns into 5 or 6. And so a lot of people waste time because they don't know what they should be doing with their time, because they haven't planned for their week. They haven't planned a success schedule. So you want to create a success schedule that includes all the outcomes, the activities, and then actually put into your calendar, when do you plan to do these activities? When do you plan to get stuff done? So that's this second part. So planning your week, these are the 5 steps broken down. So then that way, every Sunday night, and I recommend just planning your week on Sunday nights because it's usually a quieter time. You can sit down, reflect on the past week, but then also say, all right, in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to think through what is most important for the next 7 days, bullet point those down, prioritize them, chunk them, and then put them into my calendar and figure out when am I doing it during the week. So now what I want to talk about are habits. What are they? How are they formed? And why are they so important? So humans are habitual. We all have habits, whether we even consciously know about them or not. So the reason habits are so important is they allow us to learn, operate, and develop over time. And our brains cannot process everything at the same time or the same moment of every day. So we need habits and routines to operate efficiently. We need them in order to do things without thinking about them. So if you were to stop and reflect on most of your days, you are following a routine, usually, and you have habits built in because that's what allows you to follow a routine. And the reason we need routines is because if we didn't have routines, if we didn't have habits, we would literally have to think about everything all the time. And our minds would explode because we cannot think about everything all the time. So we need to be able to operate subconsciously. And as an example, do you think about how to ride a bike or swim anymore? Probably not. When you get on a bike, you ride. You can talk to a friend. You can be on the phone. You could be, now I see people texting and taking pictures. Like, people aren't even thinking about riding the bike. And that's because it's become subconscious and it's become habitual. Same thing with swimming. Have you ever driven home while thinking about something else and then forgotten, almost seemingly completely forgotten, the last 5 minutes of your drive, where it's like, wow, I don't even remember driving for the last 5 minutes. That's what some people call autopilot. That's because you were probably driving somewhere near that you're very familiar to. And so your mind was able, because it was habitual, your mind was able to process and work subconsciously while you thought about something else. So we have both conscious and subconscious thought. Our conscious thought is both logical and analytical. So you cannot solve a math problem unless you're looking at it or focusing on it. And then a subconscious would be emotional, creative, and habitual. So habits are not difficult or mentally draining. And that's why as humans we need them, because they require little energy. And when we have a habit, it means that we've conditioned ourselves to do something thoughtlessly, which is really subconsciously, because our brain still has to think and do something. So what that looks like is so this graph shows how we learn, how our brains learn things. So, and the example I'll use is playing an instrument. So if you're incompetent and unconscious, it means that you've never seen the instrument before. You're not even aware of the instrument. But then, all of a sudden, you come into contact with the instrument, you cross this line of awareness, of consciousness. So now you're aware of the instrument, you're conscious of it, but you still don't know how to play. You're still incompetent. And so because you're focused on it, you practice, you learn where to put your fingers, but you have to focus on your fingers and say, okay, A note, I need to put my fingers like this. B note, I need to put my fingers like this. And you're very, very focused on it. Now, through practice, you're going to get better and better and better until eventually you're going to cross into competence. So now you are pretty good. You know how to play the notes. And you get better at playing the notes and better at playing the notes. And you practice and practice until all of a sudden you cross this line again. And you fall back into unconscious, but you're still competent. So what that means is you can now read sheet music and your fingers move on their own. You're not even thinking about where to place your fingers. Well, that's because your mind, because it's become so habitual in terms of playing notes, you see a note and your fingers naturally react. That's become unconscious competence, subconscious competence. So that's what we're aiming for. This is the gold. This is where we want our knowledge to be, really in everything. So now there's something called the habit loop. And it's very difficult to form a habit if we don't follow this loop. So a trigger could be, let's say that you set your alarm for 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. Let's go with 6 a.m. So you set your alarm for 6 a.m. and the action is, you know that I need to do my morning routine. Or even better, I wake up and I know I need to do something physical. I need to either walk or do a workout or something. Now, you need to have a reward for that. And the reason you need to have a reward is otherwise, sometimes this action is not the most pleasurable thing in the world. I guarantee at 6 a.m., you're not, jumping for joy out of the bed and looking forward to a workout. But it needs to be pleasurable at the end. Because if something is only pain, it's not going to be conditioned. And so the way that I've gotten around this is I know that, all right, if I wake up at 6 a.m., I'm going to do something physical. And when I do that, when I get back, that's when I have my coffee. And I know that I can only have my coffee if I've taken this action. Coffee has literally become my reward in the morning. And so now I look forward to getting this done because I know I'm going to have my coffee afterwards. And so for anything that you're trying to build a habit for, think of what is my trigger? What is the action that I need to take that I know that I need? The action is what you're trying to habitualize. And then you want to ask yourself, what can I give myself, or what can be my reward, even if it's something super, super small, like coffee. But what could my reward be so that this action is linked to pleasure? So a conditioned habit is like a wave in the ocean. And what I mean by that is, if you think about a wave, there are small waves, baby waves, and then there are massive tidal waves. So Newton's second law of physics was force equals mass times acceleration. And the force behind something like a wave, well, it's dependent on how big is the wave and how fast is it moving. And if you were to break down acceleration, it's velocity over time. So it's really force equals mass times velocity over time. Now, how I think about that in terms of habit development is a habit is very similar to a force. The stronger the force, you're not going to stop that thing. And just like a habit, if you have a very deeply, strongly conditioned habit, it is going to be, you don't want to break it. And so the way that you can think about that is effort times discipline. Effort is like the mass, and discipline is like acceleration. So discipline can be thought of as progress, consistent progress over a period of time. So effort times progress over time. So the more effort, and as an example, if you say, all right, I'm going to eat healthily, and that's the habit I'm going to build. If you eat one piece of broccoli one day, that's not going to be a habit. But if you eat consistent vegetables, healthy foods for 2 months straight, well, that's a lot of effort because you're eating large amounts of healthy food, and discipline is over 2 months and you're making good progress. So that will consistently build to be a strong habit. So we can stop little waves, but we cannot stop a tidal wave. And we want unstoppable habits when we're pursuing our goals and our dreams. And the way that we can do that is by turning our personal performance habits that we're focusing on, again, that's mindset, it's nutrition, it's fitness, and it's sleep. We want to turn those into automatic habits. And it takes about 66 days on average, or just over 2 months, to turn something into a thoughtless, effortless habit. Now, why do we want that? Because fewer than 1% of the people in the world are willing to do it. When you can turn these personal performance habits into effortless, thoughtless habits, you will dominate. If you want a competitive advantage in your life, perform consistently at 90 to 100% every day, effortlessly. You will run races around people. So you want to condition these personal performance habits over 2 months, ideally without failure. And the way that you can think about without failure is shoot for 90%. So if there's 30 days in a month, hopefully you're only breaking for 3 days, somewhere around there. And the reason is if you're breaking too much, then it's not going to turn into a habit. You're going to be throwing off your sleep schedule. You're going to be throwing off your workouts, your mindset, etc. So you really want to shoot for 90% plus. And if you can turn these into 2 months, a deeply ingrained conditioned habit, that is the ultimate path to success. You will outperform other people. So I'll finish with this at the end of here, module 4. You want to choose a day one. So when you're thinking about, I'm going to get my mindset conditioning packet done, I'm going to figure out what am I going to do in terms of physical activities in the morning, and figuring out the AM routine, the PM routine, getting all your personal performance planning done. Once you've got all the planning done, then you want to tell yourself, I need a start date. I'm going to choose a day one, and from that day on, my goal is 66 days, 2 months of solid personal performance. And after about 2 months, I promise you, it's going to be conditioned into you, and it's actually you're going to feel guilty breaking the routines, breaking your habits, because by that time, you're going to want to continue doing them. So that's it for personal performance. And in Module 5, we're going to start to dive into the professional side. So Modules 1 through 4 are really focused on your mindset, philosophy, career and life planning, and then ultimately your personal performance. So in Module 5, we're going to start diving into strategic positioning and beginning the professional side. So go ahead, get all this done, plan your day one, and I'll see you in Module 5.